Hey everyone, my name's Jeff and I'm the head of marketing here at A2X, e-commerce accounting automation software for the world's leading Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, and Walmart sellers, as well as their accounting partners. And speaking of partners, I'm joined here today by Scott Scharf from Scharf Consulting. Scott is an expert in helping e-commerce sellers streamline and optimize their back office. He helps businesses with their accounting processes and tech stack, which is going to be a lot of the focus of what we're going to be talking about today. He also helps folks select the right inventory management solutions, which can get really hairy. He provides entrepreneurial coaching and a ton more. And if Scott looks familiar to many of you, there's a reason for that. And it's because Scott has been in the e-commerce accounting space for well over a decade. He was actually the co-founder of Catching Clouds, one of the first, if not the first, specialized e-commerce accounting practice in the United States. Just to kind of TLDR this, if you're an e-commerce business owner and you want help optimizing your back office administration, Scott is your go-to resource. And we've included a link in the description below to his website. So if you want to get in touch, please do so there. Scott, thank you so much for joining us on today's video and for sharing your expertise.
No, thank you, Jeff. It's always fun collaborating both with you and the whole team at A2X.
Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about what automated accounting actually looks like for e-commerce sellers in 2025. Most sellers that are watching this probably didn't start an online store to do the accounting or get caught up in the back office administration of it all. So the idea of automated accounting is really appealing because in theory, you get the benefits of accurate numbers to help you make informed decisions, and you don't have to deal with the admin headaches. But the challenge with e-commerce accounting automation is that it lives on a spectrum. Every single person probably has a different definition depending on the tools and technologies that they're using. Some solutions deliver a part of the process. Others make bold claims that they can do all of it, but don't necessarily deliver. And with the proliferation of AI, things are getting even a little bit more confusing. So Scott, I'm going to start off the video with this question for you. What does automated e-commerce accounting mean to you? And how much of the process can we actually truly automate?
Yeah, so when it comes to e-commerce accounting, it really means that data is flowing in automatically, that either you or your accountants aren't waiting until the end of the month and downloading data and pivoting data or making guesses or doing other things. There's still a need for actual bookkeepers and accountants and controllers, especially controllers who are going to make sure that all the numbers come together and tie together and then can tell you a story about what happened in the current month based on this accurate data. But you're not paying for as many humans to be doing data entry, for them to double check things where things aren't accurate because somebody broke your spreadsheet and the calculation's wrong and all of that other stuff. What it means to me is you have a consistent way where there's daily, weekly, monthly processes for you to run your business and for the data to flow cleanly, consistently in an integrated way into your general ledger, and that you can trust it.
I love that. And I know that you have a very clear view of what this actually looks like in practice. So I'd love for kind of my next question to be, could you show us that view? Like, what does your ideal automated e-commerce accounting setup look like? And then could you walk us through the process?
Sounds great. Let's do it. So there are a number of key functions on top of just the regular accounting when it comes to e-commerce. Okay. The first is, how are you going to post your income? So you know if you sold 100 items, did you get paid for all those 100 items, and reconcile to cash? Okay. And that's really where A2X comes in. And depending on how you look at it, that's probably the first third of e-commerce accounting on top of all the regular accounting. Okay. The next key function is, how are you going to post your cost of goods sold? Okay, so I sold 100 widgets at $10. I need to reduce my inventory by $1,000. So I know if I sold X amount, how profitable I am. Okay, then the next piece that more than likely probably starts first, which is, when you purchase products, how do you account for them properly? Okay. And then the last little piece is any inventory adjustments, and then some very specific month-end close. that have to be done, by the accountants to make sure the balance sheet balances, vendor deposits accurate, inbound inventory, and a number of these other details. So looking at this image in the top left, you've got your channels. So this first one is specifically for a direct to consumer only, and then we'll talk about if you're also doing wholesale as well on the next slide. So what it's going to do is A2X is going to pull in all of that income for Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and Etsy, and it's going to post it into a summary invoice, either per day or a couple invoices per month, following accrual rules. And in my opinion, instead of posting every single invoice where you have to apply a payment and track every single invoice in your accounting, this is about 5% of the work, is to have A2X post this in a summary fashion, especially because both Xero and QuickBooks QBO aren't set up to accept thousands or tens of thousands of orders. It's just noise. What you care about is, I sold 10 units. Did I get paid for 10 units? And A2X specifically does that very well. I've been working with them for over a decade, and that you end up with that data. And so for Amazon and eBay, Walmart and Etsy, they're going to post those based on the settlement statements from match all the pennies and allow you to map everything from sales income to shipping income to discounts to refunds and Amazon FBA reimbursements and other items. So all the accounting gets mapped properly and it gets put in the right buckets, in a limited number of buckets, so it's easier to manage. In the case of Shopify, it's going to post a daily invoice that's going to match your Shopify Pay output to the penny, which includes fees and everything else. And any other payment processors, it's going to put those into a clearing account. So what it's going to do is it's going to optimize income getting into your financials with the least amount of data or invoices or journal entries, so that you have accurate income that you can reconcile and track back to know that's accurate, okay? If you're wondering, well, why don't I do that with another tool or the inventory management system, they also have a copy of every order. The difference is that those tools are looking at every order. You want every order in your inventory management system. And even if they do a consolidation, they're going to consolidate based on a 24-hour day or a week or a month. That does not break it into the pieces that accountants need to, as efficiently as possible, make sure that the money going in and out of your business is accurate. Okay? So, and then with A2X, you have the option is you can upload your costs into A2X. If you don't have an inventory management system, you currently have spreadsheets, and you don't really trust your spreadsheet calculations to create the number for your cost of goods sold, you can upload those costs into A2X, and it'll post the historical COGS for all of your orders, both historically and as you move forward, as long as you keep those costs accurate and up to date. And that's really going to cover about 60% of the e-commerce accounting. You're most of the way there, and you can continue to work off spreadsheets. But as we were talking before, there's a point where you need that automation to make sure you're managing how you're purchasing inventory. You have a trusted source. So an inventory management tool is going to do a few key things. It's going to be the trusted source for purchase orders, where you purchase all your products. Every purchase order, even if you make a phone call to somebody and they're sending it to you and you don't email them anything, you want to create something that's tracking, I've requested this inventory, it's showing up at some point in time, 1,000 widgets or whatever else. Okay. The next critical thing is knowing your costs. And this is the foundation of having accurate numbers. This is the most common thing that goes out of control, is when people switch from buy costs, I spend $10 for a widget, versus it actually cost me $30 after it shipped from Vietnam or Japan or wherever, coming back over. That's your landed cost, where you take the buy costs and you add in any inbound shipping, any insurance, and any customs and tariffs and duties, which are a big deal now, to make sure you know the total cost of that product when it's sitting in your warehouse, so you don't sell it for less than it paid you to make it live and available in your warehouse. So the inventory management system is going to allow you to know the vendor, the buy costs, the quantity, the SKUs, and you'll be able to add those additional costs and be the trusted source for costs. The next thing it's going to be is the trusted source for your inventory quantities. When you receive inventory or you sell inventory, it's the one that's going to keep track of that. Anybody that's on spreadsheets, and if you're working with a third-party 3PL warehouse, an external warehouse, you can't just trust their numbers. And sometimes it's not trust but verify. It's trust but, or don't trust and say, wait, there should be another 100 units. Where are they? This is a big deal. Many people move off of spreadsheets to an inventory management system because they're working with the 3PL and they have no other way to validate their numbers, and they know there's something wrong with the numbers from the 3PL. I had a seller that had $50,000 of inventory just disappear because the warehouse reported it, and we looked and it just disappeared financially because it wasn't reported to us that it just disappeared. It took 4 months until the 3PL did an audit and found a cage full of his other product. He had already bought another year's worth of product. Wow. So these are one of the key things. But once it does that, then you can have the accounting. So to take a step back, the inventory management tool is going to pull in every order. It's going to push inventory quantities up as well as shipping confirmations and manage that portion of it. So you're going to buy product, you're going to receive product, it's going to update your inventory, it'll update what you're selling, and you'll be able to track those things and generate those things. Now, when it comes to the accounting, when you're working with A2X, what you want your inventory management system to do is when it creates a purchase order, it's going to create a bill in Xero or QuickBooks Online. That's going to tell your accountants that you've spent some money. Otherwise, they have to wait until you either make a payment, which could be a prepayment and for 25% of the overall order, but that's all they know about. So this helps you communicate between operations and accounting without there being a direct communication or an email or a Slack. Then, or they wait until you randomly get an invoice. Okay, so they can't track your outstanding accounts payable and what commitments you've made. Oh, you're spending $100,000. You can't project cash flow. You can't make financial decisions if those things aren't there. So what you should do is when you issue a purchase order, even if you do a phone, you should always create it in your inventory management system, and it should create that bill. So that is a key piece of the pie or of the puzzle or whatever else. So the next piece is posting cost of goods sold. Yes, you can upload your costs into A2X, and you can choose to post all of your cost of goods that way. In general, the inventory management system is the most accurate place of cost of goods sold because it has all of the ship dates. A2X is focused on income and can post COGS that align with that income. But what you can do is then not have A2X post cost of goods sold and have your inventory system that has your trusted costs for that day, hour, whatever, and the quantity that's sold for that SKU, and post that cost of goods sold on a daily basis into your general ledger per channel. So if you haven't heard this, instead of having a really tall chart of accounts where you have all the Amazon income, sales income, shipping income, discounts, refunds, and then Shopify, and then eBay, the idea is just to have just those total categories and use what are called tracking categories or classes to create a channel one that's Amazon, Shopify, Walmart, Shopify 2, Shopify 3. So you can continue to grow your business and where you do your financials horizontally, and it allows you to see profitability per channel. Because in this model, in your financials, you only want a dollar amount for your inventory. You're not trying to track the quantities and SKUs and per SKU costs and any of those details in Xero or QuickBooks Online. So that's probably a key topic. And then the last piece that inventory is doing is when you do a stock change, an adjustment for lost, stolen, damaged, expired, whatever adjustments happen, it's going to just post those adjustments. So you want limited information flowing in. Whenever you create a purchase order, it updates your accounting, okay? And you can sync the payment status back and forth as well. When you post COGS, when you sell products and ship them, it's going to update your accounting on a daily basis, typically with a journal entry. And then whenever you make adjustments, whether you do a weekly stock take or a monthly one, but that pulls it together where you're asking A2X to post income that makes it as efficient as possible for you or your accountants to reconcile the money going in and out of your business. And then the inventory management system to do its function to manage your inventory process and efficiencies and only post the limited information that your financials need to be accurate.
Awesome. Scott, you mentioned you or your accountant. One question that we get a lot is, at what point should you consider starting to work with a specialized e-commerce accountant? And given the information that you provided, feels like if you're kind of going down this route, it would be as soon as possible, right? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, for an entrepreneur, is it the best and most useful use of your time? Are you losing weekend time with family or your hobby or whatever else, or stress doing this? Is it the best and most valuable use of your time? Would your time be better spent either taking time off and relaxing and thinking of new ideas for products, or hiring new team members, or focusing on your marketing or something else, than actually doing the accounting? As soon as you get to that point, and most people get to it fairly quickly. I happen to have married an accountant and I haven't had to balance a checkbook in over 30 years.
Lucky.
You get there very, very quickly. So in general, it's as soon as you can, but you want to make sure that you're outsourcing it to someone that focuses on e-commerce business and understands inventory-based businesses, preferably somebody that's certified on A2X accounting and actively focuses on this space, and then deeply understands your business, that you can actually have a conversation with them, and then that's also technical, that it understands these things. But these slides, I build and share them with sellers and founders so they understand how the data gets into their financials. I explain it just as much to my peers and friends that are accountants and other people that I'm partnering with, where I support their accountants to understand, oh, this is the cleanest view of how the data is supposed to flow, so that they can support it. So they understand their role, they understand your role. You have responsibilities about creating purchase orders and spending the money, sending payments off to your vendors. They have to record it all. If most of it's recorded, it's not all perfect, and you want those bookkeepers and accountants, controllers, double checking things and doing internal controls in case this automation gets a little bit off.
Yeah. Goes beyond compliance, right?
Yep.
Like they set up the systems, ensure compliance, but in addition provide added value with the numbers that they're providing, and then the supplementary insights, like as it relates to your shipping costs, as it relates to you mentioned profitability by SKU, as it relates to your pricing strategy, so on and so forth. There's a lot of additional added value beyond compliance when you work with a specialized e-commerce accountant. That was awesome. Appreciate you walking us through your ideal setup. Now, Scott, what happens if somebody has direct or wholesale orders?
Yeah. As soon as you start doing some either direct orders or orders on terms, okay? If you just have a handful of those and you're doing those through Shopify draft orders, you can actually continue to use A2X. They have new B2B functionality. But when you start getting serious about it, where you're taking either phone orders or getting purchase orders, you're expanding into wholesale, you're partnering with a fair, or you're doing EDI, which is a data exchange to connect to Target from an EDI perspective, or to Best Buy, or to Chewy or PetSmart if you're selling pet products along those lines, you're going to be having all of those orders come in. And the idea is, what you're going to want to do is flow all of those orders into your inventory management system. For those types of orders, you want to track them in a normal sales way. So for every order, you want to have an invoice in your accounting that tracks your accounts receivable. So how that would work, and then many people expand to the point where they have a dedicated Shopify site that's just B2B, where you've set it up where your B2B customers log in, they have a login, they have cost plus or list down pricing, they have to buy in case quantities, they have to buy 5,000 minimal order, and start creating those functions around you expanding into that space. Now you want the accounting to be accurate, okay? And this makes it easier for the accountants as well. So all of those orders as individual orders are all going to flow into your inventory management system. They'll of course flow to your warehouse or your 3PL from there to be fulfilled, okay? And they can be on terms or paid up front, however they're paid, okay? What's going to happen, and the only difference on this piece, is that the inventory management system is going to sync those over as an individual invoice to your general ledger, Xero or QuickBooks Online. Okay, and then it's going to sync the status back and forth. So if you have a large customer that buys 50 grand at a time and send you a wire every 2 weeks, your accountants are going to see the wire. They'll be able to update it in your general ledger, and it'll push that payment status back over to the inventory management system so you know where things stand. And then it'll also be able to post cost of goods sold for those orders. So as part of that daily piece, the IMS will post the cost of goods sold for all of your D2C orders that have been posted. The income's been posted by A2X and all of those other individual orders. But when you get this, you're asking the inventory management things to do what it's best at. Okay, you're asking the general ledger to absorb the data and allow you to do the accounting and get to double entry accounting that you can take to the bank or to the IRS or whoever else. And A2X is doing what it does best of posting that income. By asking everything to do the right steps, everything flows and you can optimize that. And then you can adapt and choose. You can decide to do quote to order to invoice right out of the inventory management systems like Sin7 or Finale that work very well in this model. Okay, they support turning off income posting and working properly, so it plays nicely with A2X and keeps your financials clean. Okay, they're not trying to do everything, they're trying to do what they're best at. But when you create those orders, it's there. And it's a little shift if you've been doing a lot of Shopify draft orders. Sometimes that's handy, but if you're doing lots of sending stuff to influencers or marketers or returns or replacements or things along those lines, an inventory management system gives you a way to do that inside their system. And with this integration, it'll push the appropriate data across so that the accounting stays up to date and that it's flowing on at least a daily basis, if not in some cases real time as invoices are created, until you're done. So it's just a slight tweak on it, but it's really critical that once you have an inventory management system, it makes expanding into wholesale, B2B, direct sales away from just everything flowing through Shopify or Amazon so much easier, and the accounting can stay up to date as well.
So Scott, we've known each other for a while now, and I know that you have for a long time have had very strong opinions on inventory management solutions. In fact, I know that you even had a saying. Am I putting you on the spot by asking you to remind me of what that was?
No, so what I said for probably over a decade, and there are plenty of videos out on YouTube and elsewhere, which is I would say all cloud inventory tools suck. Some suck less. Where at Catching Clouds, I wouldn't let any of them connect to the general ledger because they push too much information, the wrong information. They corrupt the financials to the point where it made it harder to get to close books so people knew where they stood financially. Now, they still did some of the other work. Things have changed in the last few years. Basically, for the most part, they've actually done a better job of both controlling their data and generating purchase orders and costs. So that's better. They're collecting better data. But they've also controlled and built better integrations to QBO and Xero. So yeah, it's been fun.
So given your strong opinions, I'd love to hear about what your considerations are when choosing an IMS when you're working with one of your e-commerce clients.
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing is that when I'm talking to people, whenever I get to the point where people are reaching out to me, is they've demoed 5, 10, 15, 20 solutions. They've talked to a bunch of their peers, and their peers have very different businesses. They might be an e-commerce seller, but one person has a warehouse, the other one has a 3PL, the other one sells internationally, the other one manufactures, and everybody's business is a little unique. But probably the best advice I would have is document your requirements. Just stop. Okay, and I did a deeper version of this with one of our peers, another A2X partner, Stephen Brown at Ledger Gurus, where we'll share the link to our conversation that we geek out over this stuff all the time, and we go into even more detail. But the biggest thing is just to write down your requirements, okay? It needs to support bundling and kitting. It needs to be able to support dynamic bundling. It has to integrate into Shopify. It has to support our warehouse management system or our barcodes for our warehouse. It has to provide accurate financials. It has to do multi-currency purchase orders. Whatever that is about your business, you know your business, write those down, okay? If you've tried another tool in the past and bad things happen and you've killed it off, or you're sort of using it, or you're sort of using a system now and there are like 5 things you hate about that, write those down as things you don't want, okay? Like, it's just getting it to stop and then go, look, if you're supporting migrating from spreadsheets, will it do the fundamentals that you need? Like, you can write down the basics too. Can I create a purchase order? Will it let me email that purchase order? Can I put stick figure images in the email that I send because I can't just send a description because I'm translating to another language? Whatever those pieces are, okay? Does it support tracking inbound freight? What happens? Will it support every time I place an order with my supplier, they ship it in 5 batches? I'll get a container every other month for the year. Can it support that? Will it help me track those things? Will it work with Amazon FBA? Will it do whatever? And I have a comparison list of over 70 of these solutions. It's 300 fields deep that I use both to help sellers find the right version, but I also consult back to these companies as well to help them fill gaps in their functionality, okay? And then, and then write those down, narrow it down to 2, okay? And then demo those and take notes. Don't just let them do the standard demo. You can let them do the standard demo for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and then say, show me how purchase orders, show my operations manager how I receive inventory, show me how landed cost is calculated. Oh, you do it based on quantity, not weight. My stuff's really heavy. Your tool won't calculate landed cost based on the weight, that if I bought $100,000 worth of product and like 3 of the items weigh a ton and the other weigh like a feather, and you can't allocate that, you're going to put the same amount of shipping on a feather as you would a ton, something that's a ton. Walk them through how they look at quantities. Walk them through the reports. Do they do moving average cost for your cost of goods, or do they do first in, first out and track every sale? That's not always a killer piece. You just need to understand what that is. And then does it integrate with all of your existing technology, specifically your general ledger, and of course, all of your channels. So you want to make sure you've got those things, and then, demo 2 systems, document them, go through, and then compare them and rank them, get quotes. The cheapest solution isn't always best. Okay. You want to make sure which one works best. And the next thing is, right now, I would say by the end of this year, every single inventory management solution that doesn't have an AI-based demand planning, inventory planning solution that tells you when you're overstocked, gives you 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks warnings to place a purchase order for something that takes 62 days to show up at your warehouse, they're going to be at a disadvantage. Or work with one of the tools that are out there, Fleabird, Predico, whoever. The other piece is, it's almost more important who implements it as to the tool itself. You want to pick the right tool, okay, and narrow it down and go through an actual process, a documented process, just on a Google sheet or whatever, so that you're doing it properly, so you're comfortable with the right decision. But what it comes down to is implementing these tools. It's usually a 4 to 8 week process to get it implemented. This isn't something that's going to be set up in a day. You're going to do it over the weekend and whatever. It's just not possible for any business over $3 million. It's just not. And if you have manufacturing, add another 2 to 4 weeks to retranslate and get everything set up in there. And then after those 2 months, you're going to have a month of going live and training with it, where you're running your old system and your new system in parallel. And then after that, you get comfortable for the next couple months, and then you can optimize and do things along those lines. But depending on some of the inventory management systems, Finale does their own implementations, and they have a phenomenal team and great customer support, and you can trust them to do it. Okay, Sin 7 has an okay implementation teams, but their implementations for a few $1,000s are so lightweight that it doesn't finish everything, and you might have to redo everything 3 months, 6 months later if you don't. I always recommend hiring one of the many great Sin 7 external partners that will spend those 2 months with you, that'll train your team, that'll customize and adapt these tools to your business so that it's fully implemented.
I love how you have such a pulse too on each of these inventory management solutions. And you didn't mention this, but I'll mention it for you. Like, I know that you work directly with most inventory management solutions servicing e-commerce. I know that you're giving them feedback on their roadmap and so on and so forth. So, if folks watching this video are looking for somebody to help with with selection, I would definitely highly recommend, reaching out to Scott after this video. Okay, so we've gone over your considerations for evaluating an inventory management solution, but let's talk a little bit about what they are for an accounting solution.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have one of the biggest challenges I'll say is that you've got Xero and QuickBooks Online. They're Pepsi and Coke. Going with either one is fine, okay? There's no reason to change from one to the other and back to the other, because every time you go through a migration, you end up usually with 2 or 3 months where you don't have any financials. You're totally in the dark, just like when you started the business before you did everything else. So if you're on one or the other, okay, you can stay there. And then really, if you already have an accounting partner, hold them accountable to do the things they need to do. Now, if they've used a tool that has pushed in 10, 20, 30, 50,000, 100,000 transactions from your shopping cart, and things are out of control, you might have to have them start over with a brand new file to get things cleaned up. Okay. But for the most part, hold your own accountants, hold them accountable, have a weekly meeting or more with them and hold them until they've got things cleaned up to your satisfaction. And then if they can't do it, then you can look for an alternative. But really, Xero and QuickBooks Online are both, there are pros and cons to both, but they're both solid solutions. They're different companies. QuickBooks Online tends to be a little more expensive. I have some very strong opinions about them. But for the most part, you need to make sure that they integrate with your banks. In the US, that's pretty much a given these days with the Plaid integrations, that it'll support your business from your current currency to multi-currency to whatever else for at least the next 12 to 24 months, okay? And that it integrates with payroll, accounts payable, financial apps, dashboard apps, cash flow apps, whatever else you're doing, your payment processors, things along those lines. And then another key consideration is that your accountants, your trusted partners, support it. Okay? If you're not sure, you haven't decided, you sort of don't really have anything, you're on one of the low-cost, free solutions or still on spreadsheets, which I run into companies that are over 10 million that go really fast that are still on spreadsheets. Find your trusted advisor. Any of the A2X partners, e-commerce accounting firms out there are a great choice. Is find the right trusted partner that's going to provide the services you need, whether it's bookkeeping, accounting, controller, or CFO, or tax services. Don't typically ask somebody that only does income tax to do bookkeeping or client accounting services. Please don't. They're really good at taxes. They geek out on that stuff, but they're really not great about running a daily, weekly, monthly process. They're all too busy doing taxes right now while we're filming this, so I'm not worried about them seeing it. Anyway, and then work with them and look at what they recommend, but they should be asking you questions about your business versus just saying, oh, we only work with this. But if you like them and they work with QBO or Xero and that's their standard, then go with it. And in general, I'd say once you get on one, you're going to stay on it until you either sell the business or are growing at 10 or 20 million dollars, a year, and you outgrow it at 70 million and you have to go to something else.
Yeah, totally agree. And to your mention about A2X's expert e-commerce accounting and bookkeeping directory, we'll make sure to link it in the description below, so you can click on it and potentially find an accounting partner that suits your needs. So Scott, I always love chatting with you, whether it's in a recorded format on a YouTube video or just generally speaking. We talk most days. But I just want to say for everyone here that's watching, thank you so much for lending your expertise. And if anybody needs support, whether with e-commerce accounting automation, whether with selecting an inventory management solution, or any of the other services that Scott and Scharf Consulting provides for e-commerce businesses, please do reach out. There's a link in the description below. So Scott, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.